about strategic planning for artists, and that's all of you, and that's me. So I'm super excited to talk to you. This board is supposed to do this really fancy swipe thing, but I can't get it to work on my presentation, so I'm going to do it the like you're going to have to watch me creep the slides up. So I'm going to start by talking about who Triangle Artworks is, because that's the organization I work for. Triangle Artworks is a nonprofit. We're based right here in North Carolina. We provide training, resources, and community for artists and arts organizations. So I had someone already ask me about this. I have a couple people who've been in previous classes or events that we've run. We do a lot of our trainings online. We also do in-person things around the state. Many of our programs are available on our YouTube channel, so you can check some of those out. Our website is full of resource pages and directories, so if you're like, hey, I need some stuff about public art projects, or if I need, I need to find, art guilds near me, we have tons and tons of listings like that. And we also have a jobs board and a grants listing. So, and we have some volunteers. Our organization is almost completely volunteer driven, and we have some great volunteers that keep that grant listing really up to date. So if you're looking for grants, I'd love to do that. Other thing, I don't want to forget to talk about in our community section, we do like happy hours and some social events. We have a big event coming up in January 30th. It's called Smash the Arts. It is a huge party. You should all come to it. It is January 30th, 2023. We haven't had it because of COVID. We haven't had it in person. And it is a big party. It's a big networking party for artists. It's full of artists, arts organizations, art galleries. We have a lot of folks from the community that are just interested in supporting the arts. It's a great, big, fun party. If Ingrid manages to give me, if I manage to sneak your email addresses from Ingrid, or if you email me, I'll make sure you're on our newsletter, or so that you can know about it. Or if you are a fancy person, you can pick up your phone right now and just open up the camera app and scan that QR code, and you will be able to connect to our website and sign up for our newsletter. We also do all the socials. We've got Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and I just got the approval to do TikTok. I'm super excited about that. Give me one more second. You got that? Okay. So who am I? I'm Cynthia. I'm a writer, artist, arts educator, and I'm the education director at Triangle Artworks. So my background includes working as a jewelry artist. I had a company for about 15 years and did sell to large clients like Anthropologie, big, Nordstrom's, places like that. I owned a retail store for 19 years, and was one of the co-founders of the Triangle region's largest running monthly art market, which is Papa Raleigh. I have made a pivot in the last few years. Anybody who's worked a lot of retail knows, yeah, like that is. So I made a pivot in the last couple of years, and I definitely focus more on working with artists, working with arts organizations, and small arts groups. And my work with Triangle Artworks, obviously. So, okay, so we're here to talk about strategic plan. So before we go into this, though, I love the whiteboard. So I'm going to write some things on the whiteboard, and I want to ask you some questions as we're working. So first of all, who in this room, does anybody have a strategic plan for their art business? Okay, that's okay. Don't be shamed. Raise that hand proudly. Okay. Does anybody feel weird that I just called it your art business? Does it feel weird to anybody? It does. Okay, some of you. Okay, so if you are making art and you want to sell it, or you're making craft, and I'm going to use the word art, but if you are a potter, furniture maker, somebody that's traditionally fine craft, I am speaking to you as well, 100%. If you are making art and you want to sell it, that's a business. So it's not a hobby anymore. And it's not your job to give your art out magnanimously to the world without compensating yourself. You'll burn yourself out. You'll go into the hole financially. Like, that's just not a great way to do this. So a strategic plan can be really, really essential because that helps you make sure you're making the work you want at the pace you want and you're going in the direction of your own goals and priorities. The difference between a strategic plan for an artist versus a strategic plan for a nonprofit or even a business. I mean, you could have like a milkshake shop, right, and have a strategic plan. But as an artist, your work is intrinsically tied up with who you are as a human being. If I own a shake shop, those shakes probably do not represent my, like, personal beliefs and my, like, maybe they do, I don't know, some chefs are artists, but so typically for an artist, it is going to be having a strategic plan and planning for your business. There's going to be an emotional and a psychosocial component to it that you don't necessarily have with business. So I like to just say that right out front because sometimes this can become a really vulnerable situation for artists, particularly if they don't have a plan. You've got a plan, which I like to hear that. That's exciting.
We got sort of a partial plan.
Partial plan! 7 Post-it notes taped to the fridge. That's good. That's fine. Your plan can look a lot of different ways. But basically, a strategic plan is just looking at where you are, where you want to go, and how you're going to get there. It's just those 3 components. But of course, we break it down into line components. Also, if you Google it, you'll be like, your strategic plan must have 7 elements, must have 9, must have 3, must have 2, must have 14. It's crazy, right? I like to make things easier because I also, like to make things easier. So really quickly, I'm going to go down the rows, and I just want to know what people make. I know this is going to sound like a crazy thing for me to do, but I need to do it. I'm going to start with the gentleman in the back who has a strategic plan. What do you make, sir?
I own a music venue and I play in a band.
Band. Oh, you're a musician. Oh, yay. Okay. Yes. Okay.
Arts administration.
Arts administration. She belongs on the other side. Well, we'll let you listen anyway.
Yeah. Singer-songwriter.
Music. Oh, this is so exciting. Okay.
Dancer, digital creative.
Ooh, digital. So what are you doing with your digital?
I do reels on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay. Are you monetizing that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are you on TikTok?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's have a conversation.
Painter, designer.
Painter. Like graphic design, home design.
Actually, product and home.
Product home. Is this handwriting almost legible?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's what we. I went to school for education. That's what we strive for. So, what do you mean? Painter. That's right. We talked about this before. We got more painters. I'm just going to list it. Sculptor. Furniture. Drawing collage.
Fine artist, graphic designer.
Okay, fine artist. Graphic design. Should be an S. Yes. Animator, illustrator. Okay. Painter, that's right. This is Ladera McKinnon. She's amazing, so I'm just going to fill this in for you, Ladera. She's a painter, potter. I guess I could have given you 2 lines for that, sorry. Educator, right, oh yeah. Right, curator. You got a lot of slashes on that, right?
I'm here, my husband is the actual artist. He is a music, storyteller.
And he has support people. He has support people. That is awesome. So, music, storyteller.
Fine artist.
Fine artist.
Drawing. I like to say I'm his wife and manager, not always in that order.
I think that's good, yeah. Multi and photo. Multimedia. Photographer. Which is hard for me to write for some reason.
Abstract artist.
Abstract artist. And we got one more.
Writer and songwriter and photographer.
Writer, songwriter, photographer. Ooh, I am so. Did I not get anybody? Did I miss somebody? Okay. Well, so that is exactly my point, right? So many of you couldn't give me one thing, right? I mean, and I started writing them all in the same line, and then I just gave that up. But many of you have multiple things that you do. So when we're doing these exercises, you have an option to focus on one path that you take or to focus on multiple paths that you take. You don't have to just focus on one. It is easier whenever you're considering your business to kind of create a main focus for your business. That's just a mental thing. But I'm not saying you can't be an animator, illustrator, dancer, furniture maker. You know what I mean? You can do all those things, right? And they all push your work as an artist forward. That is also a difference between doing this in the arts and if I owned that shake shop, but I also wanted to do auto detailing, what is my business consultant going to tell me? Why are you doing that? Don't. You can't do those two things together. But that's one of the cool things about being in the arts is you can do those two things together. They inform each other. They work with each other. So thank you for joining us. If you don't have papers, just yell and I'll bring them to you. So this is all the things that we are in this room, which is kind of amazing. So I'm going to go to my next slide. So what's a strategic plan? It could look like any of these things. It could be some Post-it notes on your mirror. It can be detailed bullet journaling. It can be some crazy guy with a whiteboard in your kitchen. It's probably not going to look like this because you're an artist. Right? This is for some dental college or something. I literally Googled very boring strategic plan layout. So I tried to remove some of their information off there because I didn't really want to shame them too much. So, but basically a strategic plan ends up having 4 components for you as an artist. The first part of it is your evaluation. That's just kind of seeing where you are, right? The second part is a listing of your goals, where you want to be. The third part is the actions, the things you need to do that are going to take you where you want to go. And the last part is the results. That is looking back at things after they've occurred and evaluating them. So here's an example. I am a singer-musician, and I decide I'm going to spend some time over the next year. I evaluate that I have not, one part of my evaluation is I decide I haven't got my work out enough in front of the public. So my goal is I say I'm going to perform more shows. So my action is that I book myself a bunch of shows in coffee shops up and down the beach, right? And then after a season of that, I look back at the results of that. Did I get more bookings? Did I sell more music? Did it improve my work in some way? I have to loop back. It is a loop. These triangles are supposed to look like they're kind of spinning or something. So the idea is that it's a loop, right? You have to kind of come back and do that evaluation. So Ingrid is I only have you for 25 more minutes. So we are not able to do all the facets of this today, right? Because I would have to be with you for 8 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours over 4 weeks. I think that would seem reasonable. Yeah. So we can't accomplish that. But what we can do is do this overview. So we do have some activities. I'm going to flip through these slides really quickly. So where you are, the first activity that we have is your priority grid. Looks like this. Yep, everybody should have. You should have 2 pieces of paper in front of you that are turned face down. That was my middle school test-taking technique. And we're going to spend just a few minutes on this. So let me talk this over. The way this works is step 1, you list 10 items that you consider important in your life to you as a human being. So these are 10 things that are important for you in your life. And then in step 2, you compare these. So you look at number 1 that you say up on the chart and number 2, and you circle which one is more important. So you end up comparing all of these. Does this make any sense?
Are these activities or just things that?
Things that you consider important for you as a human being. So one of mine would be hiking in nature. So that's an activity. Another of mine might be political activism, right? That's also an activity, I guess. I like my family. That's a thing, you know.
Boy, some of my important things majorly conflict with what I'm doing here.
With what you're doing here, well, that's an interpersonal thing between you and your husband. That's a whole different seminar. So we can't. Maybe you could pretend to answer it for him.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So the wife won out over all of them.
What's that?
The wife was number 1 on all of them.
Well, so I will tell you, often for people, their family becomes their number. They realize it's their number 1. Their family, their loved ones, the people that, family, friends that you spend time with. I have had people tell me that when they do this activity, they don't put that down. Do you know what I mean? Because you already know that's at the top, so really you're looking for number 2. So you're welcome to do that. So we're just going to spend a few minutes on this. And probably it will frustrate you. And I do not collect these, so you don't have to worry about your spelling or your personal privacy. We're just going to go a couple more minutes on this. If you do not finish it, it is okay. This is going to be a really boring part of the video. Okay, folks, I want to stop. I know I probably am frustrating many of you, but we do have a break coming up, and then during the break you can come back to this if you didn't finish it. So was anybody able to finish it, though? I see a couple people with pencils down, so I'm assuming no?
One slot empty.
One slot empty. No. But was anybody able to do their scoring? I saw some pencils down. No? Okay, I'll give you guys a couple more minutes then. I thought I saw a couple people being done. Maybe you were just pondering. Are you pondering? Yeah, it's deep, right? Again, the person with the shake shop or the auto body detailing thing doesn't always have these same concerns. So.
Listing things my husband I know, and it's,
Right. So maybe here, I'm going to give you a blank one and take it home and make him do it. Also, you could do it for yourself and then be like, hey, honey, look at all these things that are my priority, and none of them is furthering your career.
I get 100% of the profits in this business.
Oh, well, there you go.
I don't worry too much.
You don't complain. Okay. That is a really good profit sharing. Yeah.
He calls me management from the stage. So.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, if it's 1 and 2, if you just circle both numbers, it would be like.
You have to choose. You have to choose. You have to choose. You cannot say that something is the same. You have to choose. You're forced. It's like one of those weird things, like, chickpeas or black beans. You can only have one for the rest of your life. It's that kind of thing. I was on a podcast I listened to recently. Obviously, the answer is black beans, but. It's not a test.
I know.
Yeah, it's an activity. Should have put a potentially emotionally retching warning on my talk. I'm going to go one more minute on this just because I'm going to run out of time.
Identify the staff and board and time commitment involved, and that's really important. Some of the feedback I've heard over the years is, well, I didn't realize it was going to be this much. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't, but you have to prepare them for it. Typically, a strategic plan is not.
Okay, folks, if you are not done, I feel your frustration. I totally get it. But you can take this home, right? You can do this again and again. Ingrid's going to send out a blank one. This is actually a good thing to do once a year as an artist or as a human being. So I did it one time with my kids, my teenagers, and they were like, and then I was like, well, and let's look at how you actually spend your time. They were like, because the dog was super high up, but I was like, really, you only sleep with the dog. You're not walking the dog. What makes the dog happy, right? So looking at your list, does anybody want to share something that they put on their list that they are surprised about? That you're surprised that made your list of 10 things when you had to list them? Yeah, see, thank you.
Well, I just thought it was funny that at one point I was like, what is more important, fine art or health, like training? And I was like, oh my God.
Right, yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
Any other, yes?
I thought I liked to garden a whole lot, and it turns out I don't.
Right. It's okay to let hobbies slip away. Your neighbors might not like it, but it's okay.
One thing I wrote down for my husband and have noticed has become more and more important to him over time is actually mentoring.
Certain activities can be higher up than you think they will be, right? Yeah, when you compare them. Yeah. So anybody else have anything else that once you started comparing it, you're like, again, this is totally not important to me? I thought it was. No? It's okay to have things on your list like paying your bills, right? It's okay to have things on your list like selling your work, you know, working your full-time job if you have a full-time job. Oh, look, I put it to sleep again. Okay, so that's a priority grid. If you did not complete it, maybe during the break later or something, complete it so we can come back to that. So then I'd like you to, wait, before we go on, why would we do that? Why do you want to know what your priority is? Did I not explain this?
I think it's kind of like what you were saying about if you have an internal priority, but then you look at your days and you're like, oh, this isn't matching up like the way that I would want it to.
That's it. Also, if you are a educator, photographer, collage artist, musician, and you just did your priority grid and only collage artist really shows up, then maybe those other things can drift away. I'm going to give you some advice for the rest of your life. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean you have to do it. Artists and creative people need to hear that, because sometimes your work that feeds you as an artist and that is economically viable can take the backstage to the other things that people are like, oh, but you have to keep making those. I love them. People love them. You know, gosh, you got to keep doing those videos. I watch them all the time. And you're like, well, wait a second. I don't actually love doing them. They're not a priority for me. They're not making me any money. Why am I doing these, right? So this grid can help you understand that as an artist, just because you're good at it doesn't mean you have to do it. You can be good at it and just let it fade away. It's okay. It's okay. So we're going to go to this handout, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what this is. So this is the other half of the where you are, the evaluation. It's the SWOT analysis, and I know you're like, I've heard of something similar to this. Yes, you have. You've heard of a SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So we prefer to say barriers because that strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, that comes from an idea of like capitalism as warfare, which it is, but it's warfare on all of us. And so in this case, for your business, what are the barriers to you accomplishing things? So that's why the nomenclature difference on this. So let's talk about what something like this, and if you are like a eager beaver, go ahead and start filling it out as we're talking, but I want to talk about what some of these things would be. So strengths. So these are strengths that you have as an artist, as a business person. I wrote up there on the board, it starts with the work. If your work is not on that strength, then that's going to tell me exactly what your actions need to be later on. I'm just saying that. If you're like, hey, and I know in talking to a few of you at the beginning, they're like, oh, I'm just starting, I haven't. Okay, then your strength is not your work yet. But maybe your strength is that you have dedication, that you have the time to put into it, that you have a lot of understanding about it, that you've taught this subject for 20 years, whatever. So Strengths are things that are positives for you as an artist and business person. Weaknesses are things you need to work on. This is some deep personal psychological work. You didn't realize you're getting into this, did you? No, here's some strategic planning. Oh. I have tissues in my bag. If you so, but weaknesses, what could your weaknesses be? Your weaknesses could be that you don't have a lot of time to devote to your artwork. Your weaknesses could be that you are not super educated in your technique yet. Your weaknesses could be that there are already 17 other people that live on your street who paint pictures of lighthouses, right? Like that could be a weakness. Your weakness could be that you're geographically far from the markets and the resources you would need to get to. Your weaknesses could be that you have 2 kids. I know it's horrible to say that, but that is a weakness for you as an artist and business person, right? Like they take time out of your work, and that not in a bad way. I have 2 kids. I love them, but you can't get anything done for many, many years. Like it's like negative. So let's talk about opportunities in that. So what are opportunities? Opportunities are things that you can see that you could do to improve what you're doing. So if one of your weaknesses is that you aren't very strong in your technique, well, an opportunity would be investigate some classes, right? So, and then barriers. Those are things that are stopping you from getting where you want to go. So again, some of those also like weaknesses, like, you know, you're geographically far from where your work would be. You don't have enough capital to do the type of work you want. You know, you don't have the money. You don't have the assistants. Not all of us have an assistant that we can send to a class like this. Right? You might have, you know, other barriers. You could have, you know, language barriers. You could have, you know, barriers that you are having trouble connecting with your customers for some reason. So. So we're going to you can just jot a couple things down on that, and then we're going to go on to the next triangle. Remember our triangles? I'm going to slide back to these. I kind of wish I could use that fancy board. So, because we just did we're doing evaluation, right? So then I would like to talk about goals, because I only have a few more minutes. I'm pretty sure Ingrid's going to hold me to it. It's stressful having you in the room, Ingrid.
You have until 10:15.
Oh, I do?
Yeah. We have some more time. See? Yeah. 10:15 is our break.
Okay. So then let's go back to that. Write down, everybody get at least 2 things in your squares. At least 2. If you've, like, yeah, she's got like 17. Look at you. And you're going to take this piece of paper with you. I'm not keeping it. Nobody's going to read it but you. So if you are looking at your squares and you have lots and lots of things in your weaknesses and barriers, and you don't have very many things in your strengths and opportunities, that is a deep conversation that we should have. But the fact that you're here and you're a creative person is a strength. The fact that you know to seek new information is a strength. like, I see some people have lots of opportunities. They can think of lots of opportunities. That's some beautiful optimism there. I love that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this exercise. I did print it out for you in advance, but I'm pretty sure everybody in this room can take a piece of paper and draw a grid on it, right? You can do this exercise for specific decision points in your business. And it's really valuable for that. It's actually harder to do it like this, where I'm like, think globally about your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and barriers. That's hard. But if we were talking about you're a musician, we were talking about going to this one event, you could do this sort of for that event, right? If you're an artist and we're talking about maybe adding this new category of work, you could do it about that category of work, right? So just a little grid and just kind of listing those things out can be really incredibly helpful for decision-making points. So let's talk, for those of you that wrote things down, who was surprised by something they wrote down in their space? I'm not going to make anybody read theirs out. Yes. What'd your husband write down?
Well, I actually did me and him, as much as I can think of. Some of the same things showed up in the same blocks.
Oh, for both of you? Okay.
Like, the different art forms that he does,
Mm-hmm.
and that's an opportunity, but at the same time, for me, it is a barrier, because that second art form, the visual arts, that he started back up again, and I'm not as familiar with everything of that. So
Right.
that same thing showed up in two different blocks.
Right, because it has two different facets. Yeah.
It's an opportunity, but it's also a barrier at this moment.
Right. So, anyone else? Don't make me call on you.
I thought I had a lot more strength than I thought I did.
You what?
I have more strength than I thought I did.
Very good.
Yeah.
And things that you were...
And the weaknesses weren't as prevalent as I thought they were once I started thinking about them. I thought that it was a weakness, and then I felt 5 seconds about it. I was like, that's not a weakness. It's a little bit of self-realization.
Right. And sometimes you can think about it and think, is this a weakness or is it a barrier that I can overcome?
Right.
You know, so a weakness is something you need to change about you or your situation. A barrier is something that's external that you need to overcome. So, yes.
So now that you said that, I thought, okay, this is a plus, but it's also a negative. My opportunities as an artist, I have a full-time job and I make a lot of money, so I'm able to purchase the
Materials,
supplies,
yeah.
But I have a full-time job, so it limits me time to use those materials. So I guess that's the same.
Right.
It's a weakness and it's an asset.
Well, and to parse that out, technically the weakness is your amount of time you have.
Right.
The strength is that you have the financial means to do the work that you want to do. Yeah. So those things are related, but they still are separate things, right? So let's talk particularly about those opportunities and barriers. Okay, because those are the ones that you're going to want to zero in on when you're thinking about the next step, which is talking about actions for your business. So, opportunities. Ladera, I'm going to pick on you because you're here. So, talk to me about one of your opportunities.
I think one of my opportunities would be, I was going to say, they're, balancing out just the business, but, and, releasing collections and stuff, and I stopped doing that for a while, but I'm still being creative by doing, speaking things or curating, there's other art things to do than just creating.
Right.
So that's
yeah.
my opportunity, because, getting burnt out was, the barrier.
Mm-hmm.
And
So you burned yourself out because you were releasing collections on a schedule, and then you're like, well, I can't do that.
yeah. And this year was dedicated to a couple of collections, and mostly working on other opportunities that are open for me to be creative.
Yeah. So, are any of your barriers related to that?
I would say.
Are there any barriers there that kind of block that?
I think just finding those opportunities, but like just finding them on my own instead of like people reaching out to me, because most of the opportunities are people just reaching out to me, not me going and like, hey, like pitching myself.
So is a barrier like a reluctance to pitch yourself, right? Yeah, that's a barrier. Because if you've got that, so, she's wanting to focus a little bit more on those speaking presentation things, on doing curation, but if she's not going after that, how do other people know about that? Yeah, and it is on your website. But, right, yeah. Yeah. So let's talk. Who else would like to talk to me about one of their, like looking at an opportunity and a barrier? What is your name? Gabrielle. Sorry, he said something right when you talked, and I was like, I can't. Okay. So Gabrielle, tell us.
I feel like for me, for dancing, I should be showing up to dance classes and workshop events, because I don't, same as her, like most of the opportunities that I get is coming to me,
Right.
versus me going out and putting myself in a position to do like auditions and things like that,
Right.
to be in like performances on stage. So with my barriers, it's like I'm having trouble connecting with my audience online. So I feel like maybe if I was to go out and put myself out there in front of people physically,
Right.
then I can connect and network with people that are actually doing the things that I love to do.
Right.
But it's like my transportation.
Yeah. How do you get there?
Yeah. So it's like getting there.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes I'm relying on other people.
Yeah. So do you have transportation as a barrier? Because that's a real barrier, right? Like, things like being busy at work hours, whatever. Like, those are real barriers to success as an artist. So, yeah. So with your, so you mentioned both the auditions, dance classes, like that's in-person stuff. So how do you relate that to people seeing your video work?
So like I said, I do a lot of reels on Facebook and Instagram. That's
Mm-hmm.
how I got monetized, is being present on social media. So
Right.
I'm good at that.
Yeah.
But the audience isn't the audience that I'm looking for. So it's like the people that are in the algorithm isn't putting me where I want them to be.
Right.
As far as the monetization.
Right. Yeah.
Monetized, but it's a criteria you have to reach in order to get the payout that you want to get.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I put out a lot of energy. I am one of them people that I'm going and I'm putting out content, but
Right.
I don't really burn out because I know how to balance myself. But yeah, so that's one of the things where I'm hindered because I'm like, I'm putting out all this work, and it's just like, I don't see you back.
Right. Right. So an action for you would be to like investigate how you can get those,
The audience to be more engaging with my craft.
right, and to get that audience that is the directors and the choreographers and the people like that, right? Like that's an action item for you. So you're going to take those. My thing's gone. Look at that. It goes to sleep. So you're going to take those opportunities and barriers and look at those and connect those to each other, and we turn those into actions. So just like we just did, like we just talked through these two. Does somebody else have opportunities and barriers they want to talk through? Furniture guy does.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I work professionally as a product development manager for a large furniture company here. So I'm creative 40 hours a week. And I'm always on because I work for the director of the company. Then I come home and try to be always on and be creative doing my own thing.
Yeah.
It's just like I reach a point of no return.
Right.
I can't produce for myself what I've done for 8 hours that day.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I told you about my whole career shift, right?
Right. So I wrote always on in every box
Right,
because it's an opportunity and a weakness and a barrier and a
right,
strength. Because I do
right.
well at it. That's why I've gotten to where I've gotten.
Yeah,
Because I can be creative on demand.
right, right.
But it becomes forced at a certain point.
So, class, let's think about this. That's his issue. What is an action that he may need to take? Does anybody have any ideas?
I was reading this book by Martha Beck, and she was talking about this when you have this ability that people really find valuable, and she said, give yourself a micro version of that first in the morning, or like, she calls it like the 1 degree turn toward where you want to be, so that, you know, all that great stuff that you're putting out there, and people are profiting on it too. You give it to yourself first, just a tiny bit every day, and then it builds up. You know, she's like, you'd be surprised how quickly.
1% of the time.
Yeah, that's so an action could be making time, giving yourself time. Yeah, yeah. I always like to say that you, and this is particularly for artists who like book time or, make yourself a client. Like, put yourself in your list, or if you're, if you're an artist and you're like, oh, I really want to try this, making this new work and promoting it. If you are somebody that has a system set up for taking custom orders and you deliver them on time, pretend it's a custom order. Make that new thing a custom order. Make it a custom piece of furniture or whatever, and put a delivery date on it. So, but yeah. So, does anybody else have that kind of thing where they feel like they're always on creatively? Yeah, you too.
Which isn't always, it's just a time management issue, right? So most of us, probably all of us have multiple revenue streams, things we do as from 9 to 5, and then what else you can fit in from 5 till you go to sleep, right? So it's time, it's a time and energy issue for everything. So if you have 3 or 4 different verticals that you do, it's like, how do you prioritize those things and making sure that you're giving each one the proper amount of time.
Right. There's ways to do that, right? You can just literally make a piece of pie, right? Like make a pie and say like 50% of my income comes from this thing, so it's got to have 50% of my time, 20% of my income comes from this thing, it has to have 20% of my time. You might need to make a piece of pie in there of your time that reflects a change that you're making, so if you, right now you're like, well, my income comes from this. Well, maybe you can give your income less time and emotional energy. And it's hard. Again, the difference between, right? She's, oh yeah. Because you're like, oh, I just can crank out that content, but that is expensive, right? It's expensive. It takes your time. It takes your emotional energy, your creative energy. So, again, you're not a shake shop. You're making your art. You're selling your art. So your creativity, there are a lot of quotes about creativity. It is definitely something where you do always have more, but you got to let the bucket fill up a little bit every once in a while, So, and there's tons of techniques. I mean, this is not the purpose of this class, but there's tons of techniques. Silence, I personally find silence to be an incredible filler. Like if I'm driving in my car, I'm on the phone with you. If I'm driving in my car, I don't have anything on. Freaks my kids out. And I'm like, yeah, because I can just think then. It's just a time that I can do that, And so silence can be helpful, giving yourself some kind of putting yourself on a little media fast or media diet, like not watching movies, not watching, not reading books. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but not taking in other creative work for a while. Just deliberately trying to minimize that. That can be a really good technique. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit more about translating these things into that strategic plan idea, because I have 5 more minutes. So that seems like a reasonable decision. Okay, so we just talked about how you would take those, take your opportunities, take your barriers, translate them into actions. What you want to do is look at your strengths and your weaknesses, and those you're going to translate those into your goals. Okay? So if you have a strength, often people have a weakness that corresponds with it. Or maybe you have the same thing in all four of your categories. You can translate those strengths and weaknesses into goals. So does somebody want to talk about, yes, ma'am? I'm sorry.
Well, you said strength.
Strengths and opportunities. I'm sorry, weaknesses, yes, opportunities and weaknesses, sorry. Yeah. So because the first time we were looking at strengths and barriers, and now we're looking at, strengths and opportunities. Sorry, I can't read. No, it should be strengths and opportunities. I'm sorry. I'm saying weaknesses, aren't I? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. How many people did I just confuse? Please raise your hand. If it's not 100%, I feel bad. So just raise your hand. I just confused you. Okay. So to look at your strengths and your opportunities, and you can translate those into goals. So, and why do we start with those? Because if you're strong in it and there's an opportunity, that's like an easy translation, right? So your strength is creativity. What is an opportunity you have? I know you have one on there that you want to share with us. I'm going to pick on you. And what is your name? Because you're not furniture guy. Justin. Okay. I mean, it could be furniture guy. Your parents might have been like really prescient. Yeah.
Not the full support of my wife.
That is very, very good strength. Okay. So, what is an opportunity?
That is the opportunity I wrote down.
Okay.
I could give more time to it because I have her.
Because you do have her. Okay.
We have 2 kids. We both work full-time jobs, but at the end of the day, she'll say to me, "Go work on your work."
Right. So you have time to carve out that 1%.
I can't.
Basically, we just solved all your problems. You're free to go. Justin's out of here now. Okay. So I'm going to come back to you, Gabrielle. So Gabrielle, what was a strength that you have and an opportunity you have that we could translate into a goal?
I would say I just have a dedication.
Dedication is definitely a strength. Yeah.
And to actually go out to go to these auditions and
Yeah.
regardless,
Yeah. So you could have a goal that you're just going to go to. I like goals that are not vague, too. Like, I would not want to see you have a goal like go to more. What is that? That's not a thing, right? I would like you to see you have a goal that's like in the next 6 months I'm going to go to 6, or in the next, there's a whole, if any of you have been in school in the last 20 years, you did SMART goals probably. And if I had more time, right? You did SMART goals, kids, yeah. You did SMART goals, and if I had more time, we would have done an activity that involved candy. Sorry, but so SMART goals, and this is important on all goals, are goals that are specific. I will go to 6 auditions. They're measurable. That might be spelled wrong. They're measurable. 6, that's a metric. That's a number. I can measure that. Did I do it or did I not? In a certain amount of time. Did I do it? Did I not? They're achievable. So Gabrielle could say, I will be on 4 dancing television shows in the next year. Well, that might not be achievable at this point, right? So that is measurable and specific, but it's not achievable, right? They are achievable. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, which is kind of the same as achievable, and time limited. That's not realistic, is it? Why am I forgetting that word? Okay. So specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time limited. So if you set a goal to I want to go to 6 auditions in the next 6 months in the state of North Carolina, right? Because you mentioned transportation, so don't say Los Angeles, right? Like, that's something you can achieve. It's realistic, and it's time limited. So at the end of that 6 months, she can either be like, "Woo, I did it," or "Ooh, I did not do it." So, So when you look at your strengths and opportunities, you can look at them and think, okay, what is a goal that I can pull out of this? Relevant. Thank you. That's a word I even know. Thank you for Googling that, Justin. So relevant because it doesn't make sense if the goal doesn't have anything to do with your business goals, right? Like, I mean, one of my goals might be that I want to own a pet elephant. What does that got to do with my business goals, right? Like, it doesn't. It actually could be a negative, frankly. So when you're creating those action lists, when you're trying to translate those, it's important to think about making goals that are smart, making them reasonable too. Many of you, and I look at your things, you have way more things in your strengths and opportunities on your grid. That's great. That tells me you're an optimist. You know what optimists often do? They create unreasonable goals. I am a prime example because this is at minimum a 2-hour conversation. Minimum, right? But I am so optimistic. I'm like, it'll go real fast. I'll be able to write faster. I won't chit-chat so much, you know? So you want goals that are reasonable, because if they aren't reasonable, you'll never be able to accomplish them. So I'm going to go through Ingrid's getting ready to open this. So in the end, and we're not going to do this because we're not creating a full strategic plan because I don't have you guys for 8 hours, you need to evaluate. When you make a plan and you get to the end of the time to execute those actions, you need to look back at what you planned and see how it went. If you don't look back, all that effort that you put into it, you don't have any opportunity to learn. You don't have opportunity to grow. And like many things, the evaluation of the results gets like crammed in at the end, and then we move on to the next thing. So one of the most valuable gifts you can give yourself if you're thinking about like the pie of your time is reflection. Just time to think about your work as an artist, time to think about what works for you. When we come back, or Ingrid will send you a link to this. This is a strategic planning board. So your strategic plan might be a bunch of Post-it notes, like we said. It might be like in a notebook. You know, you might do your strategic plan in a lot of ways. I personally love using electronic means because you can share it with a friend, because you can keep it on your phone, your iPad, or your computer, or whatever. And so this is Trello. It's a free thing. Ingrid will send you a link to it. Actually, I can show you a link right now. But you can list your it says T up there instead of barriers. But you can list your swabs here. You can put your priorities and goals here after doing your priority list. You can list your actions. As you're working on them, you move them here, and then you have a place to reflect on your processes. This is just it's not the real site. It's all just all laid out for you. That's my thank you. Okay, I don't have the, yeah, I do. Hang on one second. I might not have the skill to do this. Sorry, guys. Okay, Ingrid will send you a link to this. So this is a Trello board. It's a free tool. It's a free organizational tool. So, is my time up?
Yeah. And
Okay.
we just take it one more minute to wrap up.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got just like a 15-minute break so we can
Okay.
start the room and get ready.
So I am going to slide. Thank you all. I'm going to go back to this card though. My email address, right there, Cynthia at Triangle Artworks. You can, it's part of my job. There's a little link in there. You can schedule a 15-minute phone call with me if you need help connecting to resources or things like that. I can do that. So just email me. Say, hey, Cynthia, it was nice to meet you. Put me on all your mailing lists. And then I'll send you an email back, and then you'll have my little link. It's in my signature. So I'm Cynthia Dice on most of the social medias. I use them really poorly. Well, I'm not selling anything. Like, that's my thing. Like, unless you're being paid to be a content creator on social media, you're unless you're being paid to use it, you're the content, right? And I'm not being paid, so yeah. So, does anybody have any other questions? Anything? No? Thank you. Thank you.
You got a quick break?
Quick break, and we're going to come back and talk some more, yeah. So, this is one of my favorite quotes. It's start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. That is actually, it's one of my favorite quotes. And then I was in the city of Durham, I was in someone's office, and I just looked over and she had it on the corner of her computer. And I was like, can I take a picture of the corner of your computer? She thought I was insane. I was like, nope, I'm going to make it a screenshot for when I'm doing stuff. Or City of Raleigh, I'm sorry, I thought it was Durham, but yeah. Anyway, so hang on one second. It's not going to let me pull this up while I have that.
So Cynthia, real quick, that's
yes.
That your networking party, is that in Raleigh?
Smash is in, so Smash Networking Party will be on January 30th at Glass House, which is a facility in RTP. So it's in sort of it's in Durham, basically. It is totally worth coming to, folks, if you can manage it.
What time is it?
It's an evening thing. So if you didn't grab the Triangle Artworks information, I'm just going to put that back up on there. I don't actually... What is going on here? Okay. Let's put that up there really quickly, and then I'm going to go back to the elements of a strategic plan for an artist. So you guys saw what I was talking about, though, right? Like the Hickory Museum of Art. Like that is intense, right? Do you know why that's so intense? It's because they've got 19 board members, and they've got a director and all these staff members, and you are just you. Like maybe you have an assistant, like this artist who was able to send an assistant here, but most of us don't, right? Most of us, like you're wearing all the hats. So if your goal is to like improve your social media content, that means you have to improve your social media content, right? If your goal is to, do 10 more shows a year, that means you're the one that has to find the shows, book the shows, get the car loaded, go to the shows, right? Ladera mentioned licensing when she was talking. We would like to talk to you about licensing at some point in the future. Because that is something, if you are a visual artist, that you definitely need to be thinking about. The things, as an artist, when you're constructing a strategic plan for your business, which is like all you, right? You got to make it simple. So you need to think about evaluating yourself, really understanding where you are, looking at your goals, where you'd like to be, making those goals reasonable, humanly possible. You are a human being. Also, I really, like when you mentioned, when you were talking to us, Ladera, about like you burned yourself out, right? You made that goal. She made that goal of releasing 4 collections, and then she did it, and then realized that was not going to be sustainable.
I was doing like...
Or maybe more than 4.
I was doing like 7 collections.
Yeah.
I was doing like, because I do works on paper and canvas, so it was like, I'm going to do paper, then canvas, paper, canvas, and minis, So it was a lot.
It was a lot, yeah.
When you talk about collections, are you saying like one piece of art into all these different kinds of things, or a series of art?
Yeah, so a collection's a series, but a collection is just like one set of a series, because a series can be like multiple subjects. So I have like a no color needed. It's like I've done 3 different collections from that series. So it's just like having a body of work and releasing that. And it's like people, I think sometimes artists, it's like, you're like, I'm just going to release this, or release this collection, and everyone's going to know. But it's like, it takes about 2 months just for marketing, and then after the collection of marketing, and then on top of that, creating this body of work. So it's a lot of burnout with that process.
So Gabrielle, I'm just thinking about you. What is your schedule for your social media content? Are you just pumping it out all the time?
Well, usually I'll just take like, every other day, I'll just do a bulk of dances. Like I said, I'm on TikTok, so, to not make it hard on yourself, you just use those things, what you create on TikTok and move it to my other social media, so really I'm not really creating for one thing. But I have a lot of free time, so, mostly I'll do it early in the morning, because I wake up early, like that's one of the things.
It is your time. Yes, your time is not free. You have a lot of time that you can devote to your work.
Yeah.
Your time is valuable. It is so valuable. So, okay, so you are able to kind of batch that, which is sort of like what you're talking about, Ladera, you're batching it. So, so that can be one way to work through that, but you also have, again, as an artist, organizations have different issues. There's staff, there's folks that can kind of make these things happen, right? You find these ways, you reduce the number of collections or shift how that they're marketed. That's really smart. Like you create all in one day and then you can put it out over a few days. Yeah. Although as a dancer, I would think you could just do like only but so many in a day.
Well, for me, I can learn to dance.
Yeah.
Like that, and I can create
like that.
like
Yeah.
that.
So
I can
yeah.
do 2, 3, 4 dances.
Yeah.
A day if I want to, but I don't do it every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. So let's thinking about some of you. You are a graphic
And I would do animation.
animation.
I do graphic design too, but
Yeah.
mostly animation.
So let's talk. Do you mind if I pick on you? You're in the middle of the room, so it just seems easy. So right, like this, you think you're going to sit in the back and nobody's going to bother you, but that happens. You think you're going to sit in the front, nobody's going to bother you in the middle. No, we teachers, we can pick on everybody evenly. So with your work, how are you getting your work out there?
So I have a demo reel, and so I work as a contractor a lot, and so I'll send my demo reel there, but I also, on my website, I'll have separated elements of pieces of animation that you can just scroll through and look at. And I mean, as soon as I finish one, I'll post it on social media or something and put my website on there so they can, as soon as they see it, if they like it, they can go check out the website.
Right.
But that's about it with animation.
Yeah,
like I
yeah.
have a screen.
Right,
So,
yeah.
But, I mean, that's about it.
And so when you're looking for work as an animator, are you similar to Gabrielle, where you're looking to connect with people that are hiring animators, obviously?
Yeah.
Because it's not, or you're not monetizing your, like, it's not like I can go and download something for $250 or something. Okay.
I potentially could create like a channel and just put my own animations on there as my content. But, that's why I'm here, is to sort of like feel out like
Right.
what I could do or, what I want to do. But as it stands, I really want to work on feature films. So it's hard for me to do that by myself. It's better if I try to,
Right.
say that I want it for a studio or,
Right. Yeah. So that's how you're going to get that information out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's think about this. Like we've got we just talked to 3 artists that have 3 different ways of getting their work out, but they also all involve getting their work out there, like physically getting out. Nowadays in this world, that involves social media. That involves a newsletter. Ladera mentioned her newsletter. I'm guessing a lot of sales come through a newsletter. Like newsletters are direct communication. People find out about things with social media. So that is something that when you're thinking about those, thinking about your sort of strengths and your weaknesses, if that can be one thing. We just talked about, like, you wear all the hats, you do all the stuff in your business. For some artists, those weaknesses are things that are not something that you have the time or the inclination to overcome, right? So social media, that kind of communication can, for some artists, be a barrier that they're either they don't want to learn it, or like this person that was talking on the other side who's a DJ, Ladera doesn't, she needs 2 accounts.
Right,
Like,
that's
you
what I
know,
was thinking.
like she needs 2 accounts, but like, you know, so in that situation, like she needs maybe some help, you know, getting some of that separated. So one of the things that it can be difficult when you're just starting out as an artist, it can be difficult to like figure out which tasks, or even if you're not just starting out, you've been doing it for 25 years, and you're like, oh, I've never had to do social media before. This happened so much with the pandemic. So many people who had, you know, experienced artists, 30, 40 years, they've been selling their work, they had a little list of shows, they went up and down the East Coast, they went out, you know, out west to shows, they just did these art shows. That went away, disappeared overnight, right? Those people suddenly were like, oh, I need a website. I need to sell directly to consumers. I need to sell through stores. You know, people had to investigate all of those things. So there are times when some of those things that might be barriers, some of those weaknesses that are on your list, you may need to get help for those in some way. And, you know, and if you're a person that likes to learn those things, dig in, do it. It's totally fine. That's a good thing. But don't be, you know, it's just like you might have a bookkeeper. You know, well, you might also need somebody that can help you set up a social media thing, or, you know, investigating those kinds of things. And don't let those barriers, not tackle those barriers, though, because you yourself can't handle them, right? Understand that you have strengths, you have weaknesses, and sometimes those weaknesses require you to bring in an assistant. I mean, not everybody gets an assistant in-house, but, you know, if you have one, that's awesome. So does anybody else, we have some time, and I would like to talk through some potential actions. Does anybody have any actions that they have thought of based on what we did earlier, or some questions about how they could turn some of their swabs into actions? I don't want to pick on you guys, so I'm letting you.
And you said actions were opportunities plus barriers?
Yeah. Yeah. So what is something, like, what do you have, like, looking at your list, what is your name?
My name's Capria.
Capria? Now I'm going to pick on you because you just asked me a question. Okay, Capria. So Capria, what is something that you have, like, what is something that you have on there that you're trying to think how you would translate it into an action?
I'm just say something out of the box.
Yeah, that's totally good. Yeah. And this is not like, no pressure.
Right.
Lots of pressure. No pressure. But like, we're not judging you. You're like, I just called on you. So.
Okay. So I've been working on my craft for a little bit of time, but I find if there is an overall goal, I don't necessarily have like specific items. So there's no long-term, short-term. So, and does that make sense?
Because you're doing a lot of different things.
I have been.
Oh.
And then when I decided to take a break, I got comfortable in that space. It was very foreign, so that's like a challenge that I've been trying to get out of.
Right.
What about you?
Yeah. So do you sell your work now?
No, honestly, I haven't really been paid much for my work.
You're giving your work away. Get out.
But essentially, yeah, a lot of the people that work in my space, they don't really, booking shows is more like a volunteer basis.
Mm-hmm.
And so it won't be, when someone asks us to name a price, that's like, well, what would be ideal to name a price. It's also another goal of mine.
Right.
Is to be more concrete in that area too.
Yeah. So a good action for you might be coming up with a price list, right? You know, a document. Sometimes pushing that off to a piece of paper and just being like, here's my price list. Then you don't have to have that emotional, like, this is what I'm worth. You've already did that, you know.
Right.
Yeah. So, because you are a performer.
Yes.
Okay. I should have like made a grid up there so I knew what everybody was. But yeah. So for you, an action might be, like I said, like figuring out some prices. You know, putting that out there. One thing, and I'll go. I'm gonna take a picture of all those things so I can look at everybody's social media and stuff. But go right now to if you use Instagram or Facebook, what does your bio look like? If it says something funny like, I love Chihuahuas and has 17 pizza emojis, that's great. but you're not going to reach any customers that way.
Actually,
Right? Yeah. Like, I'm going to pull yours up because yours is so good. I know.
I just changed it.
You just changed it. Okay.
But that's because I'm
Yeah. How? I can't get out of this when it's plugged in for some reason. Okay. Oh, I'm not connected to the internet. Hang on.
Everybody has their phone.
Everybody's looking. You guys look up Ladera's Instagram. Just do it. You got your phone, so you can see it. So right. What is your say?
Mine.
Yeah. What is your say?
So mine has my name, and it has my title artist, and then I say the this, and then I have my latest single out, and then there's a link for where you can see my work.
Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Did you? It's been like that though.
For the last 5 months, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. No, that's good. I don't mean you didn't just change it right now, because I was making fun of your chihuahua. Yeah, but you know, like honestly, that for some artists when they're working on their, I got rid of it. So for sometimes a goal is just to make sure that what you're presenting with the world aligns with what you want to do, right? So that means that when I meet you and I'm like, hi, how you doing? You don't say, hi, you know, and we meet each other and I'm like, so what do? You don't say, oh, I spend a lot of time in my garden. You just already figured out from your priority thing that you don't like to be in your garden, right? So don't talk about that. So for you, maybe you would stop talking about the full-time job you do and start talking about your part, you know, what the direction you're going, right? Like, that can be a really valuable, and that is an action item every one of you can put on your list and can take action on.
Can I give some advice about pricing?
Yeah? Oh, pricing, yeah.
I'm in control of hiring outside designers that work with us quite a bit. The thing I would say, obviously find out what the market would bear, so what other people are charging. You always want to price higher because it's better to negotiate, for you, it's better to negotiate down than try to negotiate up. So if everybody else is charging 100,
solid advice.
Maybe start with 150, expecting that you're going to negotiate down to 100. But what's going to be hard is to get somebody to pay you $25 more than you go in with, because if you're the cheapest price, they're going to hire you in a heartbeat. That's the other reason.
Let's think into perspective, because when I first started thinking about prices, and not just like with this case, but like for other side hustle, everybody's an entrepreneur now. But I always thought about price being like convenience, like is it affordable, or what's the idea of affordable? But
yeah.
Coming from a product side, we always look at everything as a good, better, best. Because we have 3 types of clientele. You have somebody that wants to buy the least expensive thing because they want a piece of your furniture or a piece that you have. You have people that are always middle of the road. They don't want to pay the least, but they also don't want to pay the most. And then you have people who don't care and want a beautiful piece of art, and they're going to pay 10 times what you would expect anyone else to pay. It's good to be all those, but in your industry it might be hard. But finding out what it's worth, because you have to think you're not assigning worth to yourself. You are assigning worth to your time.
Okay.
That's the separation you have to make.
Thank you. And
I
you're,
would add to that. I would add it, like when you're saying good, better, and best, I think for when you're an artist, yours is more like your entry client, your client, everyday client, and then your top tier client. So for me, you want them, well, ideally you want them to take that whole journey of like, oh, I just met them, so I'm just gonna buy like a month. And then you'd be like, oh, she's listing a collection, I'm gonna get a paper piece, and then you might get a canvas piece, and then you'll get like a higher ticket item of commission. And you like, it's like you kind of want them to journey through that. And yeah. And you said I was gonna say something about your bio. So when it comes to Instagram and pricing, it's more of like, aren't all of us aren't our ideal client. It's like, would I buy my art from me if I had all the money in the world? It's like, absolutely. But it's like, if I was someone that did X, Y, and Z, and like yearly income is whatever, and it's like, and this is on my price rating, it's like, I most likely would not buy a commission from you because I couldn't afford it. You know, so it's more of like your ideal client, and you have to know exactly who they are. Like for me, it's like, I know they like color, I know they, like I've got them down to a T, like they like boho, they love plants, they travel, particularly in August, July, and
I feel so seen.
yeah. They're very quirky. The people that buy my art, you know, it's like that's really important about selling art and like even finding venues that want to have my art. Like my art's in dressing room interiors. She has the most vintage, beautiful, colorful. Like if y'all don't know Aryan and y'all like furniture or anything, like phenomenal shop. Mark Art's in there because her clients are like they intertwine together. I've gotten a lot of commissions from them finding out me from there. But yeah. And I think we were talking, like this has nothing to do, we were just talking about, but we were talking about you know, like how do you know, like it's kind of more of like what you see is what you get type of thing. And that's how I have a great connection with the, like, you know, like with my collectors. Like I talk to them, like they're humans, they're people, and it's like I don't brush them off. It's like I want to know more about you. Yeah.
Yeah, I found that out in the graphics community when I worked in Charlotte. I discovered that when you're talking to someone on the phone about what your company offers, a lot of times when you call them or when they call you, you don't even talk about the work, the art or anything. You just talk to them.
Yeah.
You know, if people will buy from you quicker if they like you. They'll pay more in the long run. Sometimes they know, sometimes they don't, sometimes they don't care. It's that connection, the communication. We're human beings first and foremost, and
Right.
you know, communicating is a big part of it. And I can talk to people on the phone and or at a CD table or whatever where Michael's art's hanging, but don't put me on a stage behind a microphone. I'll just
You'll
sit there
freeze.
and blah, 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 blah. You know, so you find what you're comfortable with as far as sharing yourself with them. If you can't do it as well in person or even on the phone, if it's over social media, if it's texting, if it's emails, whatever, make that human connection first and foremost. I think has been what I've found in my career in any kind of art.
And that's hard, right? Like it's that you are the human. So making the human connection means you have to, you know, do that. So, you know, that can be difficult. For some artists, it can be difficult. If you're more of an introvert, you know, I mean, Ladera, you mentioned like you have the ability to turn it on and then just go home and, you know, pajamas and a glass of whiskey, we got it. But, you know, but like, you know, like you have that ability. Some people don't have that ability, right? So that's where, to go back to what I was saying, that might be where you need help. You need help to people to sell your work, to, you know, in the like performance business, that's where you do have a manager. That's, you know, that's where you do have somebody that can have that conversation. When I was selling my jewelry, I'm gonna tell you a little secret. So my name is Cynthia, but I didn't want to go, I sold my jewelry not under my own name because I wanted to be able to go show it to people, and if they didn't like it, I could be like, you don't like this. It's not that you don't like me, right? So I used a brand name. The second thing is that when I answered this was back in the dark ages before email people. So people would call you on the phone, and you'd answer the phone. And I'd answer the phone, and I'd use the name Marie. Like, that's my middle name. But I'd just be like, hi, this is Marie, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I would have whole conversations with people about, like, they owed me money. This is why it costs this much, you know, whatever. But I created that distance because otherwise I just felt too exposed. You know, it felt too raw to put myself out there. So, and that is why you will sometimes see artists who, writers particularly, sometimes no matter what writers, for some reason writers, no matter what they write, it's really personal. It can be like something that takes place on Mars 5,000 years in the future, but it's still really personal. And so oftentimes writers will use a pen name. Performers often have, a performance name. That is that action of making that distance, so that they have space to be themselves, to kind of, be in their jammies and stuff like that. So did everybody get their name up here that wants to? Okay, I'm going to take a picture of this, and I'm going to give all these names to Ingrid, too. So I'm assuming that if you put it up here, you'll be willing for Ingrid to share it out. But please, let's all take pictures of it. We should all follow each other and keep up with each other. And you can, yes, you can. I'm not going to erase it right now. You can do it before we leave. So you have a question.
No, I also wanted to offer, so I'm also the director of the visual arts program here at CVCC. And so if anybody is ever interested in utilizing our facilities, needing help with anything along those regards, community outreach, even teaching workshops, we are constantly looking for that type of connection to the community.
Did you put are you up here?
I don't have my professional stuff.
Well, just put it right there at the top so people can get in touch with you. Yeah, yeah.
You can also email me at.
These are can I just make a comment, Catawba Valley Community College, these are the worst whiteboard markers.
Dude, right? I know, I've thrown 3 away already.
Like, seriously.
This is not because I throw away a lot, so that's why I have a good shot at it.
Yeah.
This isn't my building. My building's next door.
Where the markers all work.
Right. My markers work.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. The visual arts department, they would all function. Right?
Although we did get all those new nice little board things, those are ridiculously awesome to teach because there's a whiteboard function on those.
Oh my gosh.
And then you can capture it and you can email it to yourself afterwards and everything.
I went old school. Yeah.
It's the future.
Yeah, yeah.
But they just got us all those fancy thingies.
Yeah, that's super
That's
cool.
all our COVID money right there.
Yeah. Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
So I do want to say, I wrote in the middle of the board, it starts with the work. So I unplugged my thing, but when you're working on, when you're working and creating your strategic plan for moving your art business forward, this is either going to function or not. We don't know. When you create your, oh my gosh, it's so tiny. What's going on here? This is insane. This is not what I wanted. We're just going to leave it there. Give me a second. I'm going to keep talking though. So when you're creating your strategic plan, you need to think about your work, right? It starts with your work. Where are you with your work? Is your work ready to sell? And by that I mean, is it the work you want to put out in the world? Is it the direction you want to go? Is it ready for the world? Is your pricing right? We've had conversations about pricing, so my usual rule on that is just raise your price, whatever it is. It's probably not high enough. But when you're doing that evaluation in your work, that's something that you need to start with yourself. You're part of it, and then your work is part of it. And then your goals, looking at where you'd like to be. You're going to pull the actions out of your goals. You're going to see what of those goals can I make realistically move forward. We were having a conversation right here during the break a little bit. If you are one of those people who gets really lost in the details when you're writing a goal, do not allow yourself to do that. You're going to have to fence that off. If you're one of those people that you start out with a goal of like, well, I think I want to license my work this year. But before I even write that goal down, I'm going to do 45 hours of research as to whether it's better to license my work to a mug company or to a blanket company. No, stop. Like, the goal is just I want to get one licensing deal in this next 6 months or something like that. So those actions can be more detail oriented. Those are specific tasks that are going to get you there. And then don't forget to go back to it. Look back at what you did and make sure that you've assessed it. Pluses and minuses. Do you want to do it again, or is it over? So I think that my time is up. That's what Ingrid's here for. I want to thank all of you very much for being a really great group. Please email me. You'll get an email back. I would love to talk to you. Please take advantage of Catawba Valley Community College and their excellent markers in the visual arts program.
If anybody, I'm doing a plug because I need instructors.
Oh, and if you want to teach, yeah.
Yeah, if you know of anybody that wants to teach next semester, I need 2 instructors in the spring. If anybody has a master's degree in visual arts, or if you know of somebody that has one, I would be more than happy to speak with you about teaching opportunities.
If you send me that information, I will put it on the Triangle Artworks jobs board. Yeah, and you will get applications. It's a very job arts focused. So
Evaluations.
okay.
And then just to